When a console generation kicks off, its true potential is realized as developers get a grasp on the hardware, leverage it in their new engines, and use the all-important experience to impress with a marriage of new tech and powerful game engines. The Xbox Series S and X have been slow to mature in the first 2 years, but that is paying off, as Xbox brings 3 new boosts to power and performance, and it starts right now. This is Colteastwood. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Today we're going to talk about how the Xbox Series S and X are both getting major improvements and how this is finally happening. If you end up enjoying this video, let me know by liking and subscribing to the channel. Hit the bell to be notified of new content, and let's talk about Xbox Series S and X Boosted. In a recent game developers update from Microsoft, it was announced that power and performance for graphics are being unlocked and boosted for Xbox Series S and X. The affordable $300 Xbox Series S has been struggling to keep 60 FPS parity next to the X, even with that capable GPU and the same processor speed found in the Series X. The Series S was more difficult for developers to easily get the performance it promises in the game development kit they use to port games on Xbox because of the memory pool. It was explained by Techland as they added it into Dying Light 2 that it is different because of the, quote, density and verticality of its world. That is making it difficult for them to get the improvements on the Xbox Series S. Likewise, games like Elden Ring drop to below 30 FPS, even below 1080p. And it is not a game-specific issue as such. Full parity is possible, if not immediately accessible, with a 60 FPS or resolution patch coming a month or two after launch. Utilizing the full potential of the Xbox Series S or even the X, it's Xbox's job to make porting games to their new consoles as frictionless as possible, and late developing drivers and procedure that hasn't helped the new Xbox. Right now, Microsoft is giving Xbox Series S game developers more control over memory on the console. A new update to the Xbox Series Developer Game Kit has been released to developers, and it frees up more memory for developers to access for Xbox Series S games and boost performance in certain titles. They said, quote,
"More memory available for games. In the June GDK, additional memory is available for Xbox Series S consoles. Hundreds of additional megabytes of memory are now available to Xbox Series S developers. This gives developers more control over memory, which can improve graphics performance in memory-constrained conditions. Improved performance for graphics allocations. We've addressed an issue where graphics virtual addresses were being allocated considerably slower than non-graphics virtual addresses. This improves the speed of graphics virtual address allocation. Titles can now take better advantage of recent enhancements in memory management without negatively affecting graphics performance."
The Xbox Series S launched as a console capable of 1440p and gaming up to 120 FPS, but many games have only hit around 1080p. And without the higher frame rates of the more powerful Series X, Microsoft's larger and more powerful Series X console ships with far more graphics power, but it also has 16 gigabytes of RAM, while the smaller Series S only has 10. 2 of those gigabytes are being used for the operating system, and right now, Microsoft is able to unlock some of the allocated and reserved memory for the OS back into games to use for graphics, performance, and tasks in the game engine. Breaking down that technical statement means that Xbox games can now take better advantage of other recent memory enhancements. Talking to leads at Xbox, it is obvious that once the games get more CPU intensive, as they will into the generation as they advance, that the Xbox Series S will actually compete next to the PS5 with a faster processor than the PlayStation consoles, and will also have fidelity resolution, but full RDNA 2 access for the Xbox Series S across all feature sets. But where Xbox is beating the PS5 is where it hits the hardest. Almost 2 years in the Xbox Series X, and even the S at times, is outperforming the PS5 in frame rate, but under resolution, but still the same in quality settings. For the first year and a half of the Xbox Series and PS5 console generation, the PlayStation was meeting or outperforming both of the Xboxes in multi-plat games. Xbox has made that brand new game development kit feature for this console generation, while PlayStation opted to update the old PS4 to run new PS5 games. Multi-platform developers found that creating PlayStation versions of games was exactly how they had always done the instructions and ported, while the Xbox porting process was way more cumbersome and harder to get that performance in their games. This should remedy that. The Xbox Series X and even the S has an 8.2% CPU advantage over the PS5 out of the box, and the Xbox Series X graphic rendering chip has a 15.2% advantage for resolution and graphic quality over the PS5. Fidelity Super Resolution is now officially in the pipeline for the Xbox Series consoles development kits and now in the hands of developers. FSR is an algorithm software solution for developers that will in plain speak sharpen the image of games with very little performance hit, meaning this will free up the developers to increase frame rates and add extra effects like ray tracing and higher quality shadows and much more, and still retain a very sharp, great looking visual image. FSR's first integration has already been added to over 75 games and is coming to many more being developed for console and PC. This new version of FSR, being called 2.0, is being ready to come to Xbox Series S and X consoles right now. FSR 2.0 is also providing a post-process sharpening feature to help any images that have been degraded by that lower resolution. With the extra performance budget of some 30% when you're talking about building a game, it's important to understand that where frame rate targets are for console games. Since most or every game on the new consoles will run at 60 FPS or higher, one advantage that FSR 2.0 may have for games is to alleviate the resolution mode or get rid of quality mode. Many games that have to run at a full resolution of native 4K in a quality mode are stuck at 30 FPS. By freeing up and using efficiency features like FSR 2.0, developers can get over a scenario where a quality mode may run close to 60 but not hold it stable enough to ship the game that way with frame dips. Using dynamic resolution scaling in quality mode as well, things that are built into RDNA 2.0, this may take new games at high quality images with ray tracing and other visual improvements, also while keeping it running at 60 FPS. This will allow the game to have a performance mode at 120 FPS above a visual resolution display well above what looks like 1080p. With more memory allocation for graphics and animation and game design, better graphics, address resources to unlock the potential power that has been so far behind, we are seeing that the Xbox Series X regularly outperforms the smartly designed PS5. And for the same price point, now the Xbox Series S is going to be running alongside the much bigger and more expensive PS5 as games get more intensive. Now that developers are moving to Unreal Engine 5 and more advanced graphics presentation, the aging of this long console generation will be an exciting 8 to 10 years to follow for everyone. This is Colteastwood. Thank you so much for checking out this video. I've been pretty busy lately covering all of the new updates for Xbox. Glad they're finally upgrading and updating the GDK. This is what's responsible for developers getting their games looking and running great on Xbox Series X and especially Xbox Series S. The problem before with memory pool has been something we've heard about from a couple of developers, although we've seen some amazing things from the Series S over the past year and a half. But now, with just a few hundred megabytes, this will open up some of that operating system allocated memory to allow them to do bigger and better things or to get a parity for performance and better visuals and resolution in games. Also, having the graphics pipeline repaired and upgraded for the developers is super important, and when they're using FSR to get that super resolution with all the performance that's packed in the X and S, we're going to see some really great multiplats all in time for Xbox to start delivering amazing first-party games. If you ended up enjoying this video, let me know by liking and subscribing to the channel. Hit the bell to be notified of new weekly content. And if you want to further support the channel, those who want to become a part of the channel membership or the Patreon, you can do that by hitting the join button below. And you can join the Patreon, or either of those will get you early access to videos and get you entered in for monthly merch. I was behind a couple months, so I just did 3 or 4 of those to make up for some of the work we've been doing here on the channel. So thank you all for your support. If you want to hear more about all this stuff we're talking about in depth, Gaz, my co-host for XNC Podcast, we'll both be here every Monday night at 5 p.m. Pacific time to talk about all of the crazy side angles and how everybody is approaching all of this interesting developments and how games are changing. The industry is in a major shift right now. I want to know what you think about this. Do you own an Xbox Series S? Is it your main because you couldn't find an X? And if you do, let me know in the comments. I want to hear how you feel games are running on that $300 box. And while you're there, people are going to say the Xbox Series S is trash, or Xbox has no games, like they always do. You know, they're a one-note pony. But as I always say, you know, be nice.
How you doing, man?
Oh, really good, man. Really good. You ever get so nervous that you like get gas buildups and you're like...
The only reason he's asking me this is because he sent me a video of a person who went out. I mean, you might have seen it. Someone goes out on a date, their first date, and the boyfriend goes, oh, I need to get something for my car, not realizing that they've got a webcam, and he just steps out.
The doorbell cam.
A doorbell cam, like a ring cam, and then just lets one go.
He goes out to the front. He goes out to the front steps, just like it's all.